Hey people, I'm going to hit a little bit on the most controversial subject in the Bible. And we know it is because when they were talking about it here in Daniel 2, they had to change most every word. You can see it starts the same here, but then here you have a total same to the orgy of poly, to the orgy of many. And they changed the meanings of these. But this was totally rewritten. And this whole chapter, most every word is different from the original Septuagint. And I believe it has to do with the change of command from Greece to Rome. And they changed their sexual preference. The key to being wise, is the ability to review your dogma. And dogma doesn't mean decree. It only means decree the way it's spelled here, where the word reads backwards and forwards. But dogma is simply a Greek word meaning opinion. It's just your opinion. You have to be able to go back and review your old opinions. And most of your opinions, came from your upbringing. Some places in the world, they enjoy eating dogs. In our upbringing in America, we would think it was satanic. And one of our biggest is the alphabet soup. I had to look this up because I didn't know what all these letters stood for. Lesbian, gay, bi, tri. And that Q there, they say it means curious, but that's for fag. It's all through Genesis 3 to the faggot. And you should not eat is of the phagest. And so fag started with a Q. So I ran into this while I was studying the different words they give magicians. And here's the chart, the chartamin. CHRTMIN, the chartamin. And on the opposite side in the Greek over here, the magic, the magon, is the pharmacon. We think this is the pharmacy, the K turn into the C, the pharmacy on. But one of my viewers enlightened me to know that the farm is means a fixed tax, which is a wiser way of running medicine. If doctors are getting paid on when people get sick, they're not going to try to cure people. So in the ancient time, the pharma was a fixed tax. Everybody just paid it. And so his money was coming in. It's like in the military, that doctor's on the payroll, and he'd rather see you not sick. And he's going to do a better job of keeping you healthy than your civilian doctors would that only get paid when you come to see them. And so the farm was a fixed tax. But as I was looking at this, I put it in the Hebrew over here side by the old Septuagint on the top. And then this comes from the new Polyglot. And I noticed that they were changing the writings a lot here. And then as I got on down, I seen that the Septuagint just stopped. And all of this in the yellow is just totally added that wasn't in the original Greek at all. And this went on to the next line too. And so the majority of line 28 and the majority of line 29 were all added in. And then even the words that were there, had been changed, from apocalypton to anocalypton. And then as I looked at the whole chapter, I noticed that the whole thing, most of this chapter has been totally rewritten and every word's been changed. And it seems what they were trying to take out of this was your bed, that it comes up at the end of line 28. And then halfway through line 29, and you see that the Septuagint just starts back here, and all this beginning of 29 and 28 was removed. But this word for your bed is coitus, and coitus doesn't mean your bed. Coitus means penetration, and so the penetration you taught to it is. And you see over here in the old Hebrew, where it's there, your bed, this word is from the shack back. Dean is the teacher, D-N-E, It's it's where your dean of the school comes, the head teacher, and from the shack back dean, the teach who, H-U-A, who. Who meaning, W-H-O, the life-connected knowledge, the who. And you can see how this has been totally mistranslated to keep you from knowing. The dialogue is not your thoughts. The dialogue is what is spoken. The dialogue is hoism, to draw attention to you upon this, of the coitus, of the penetration, to penetrate you. And this word they say is king here. This isn't king. It's you, the vessel who. And so you vessel who is the body that you're in, is the king, is the animal that your thoughts are in. And you see here, when it came to your mind about what would come to pass, is the self, S-L-F, the self to meddle who, the self to meddle who, to dig into your own thoughts. So this famous old Confederate general, Albert Pike, also an author, poet, orator, editor, lawyer, jurist, a Confederate general, had wrote this book on morals and dogma for the Mason Scottish Rite. So this dogma excelt, excel, exalt to raise up, excelt to move ahead. It comes from the same place as a fire dog, a bracket support normally found in pairs. The book dogs would hold the books together, and the fire dogs, they hold the logs together so the fire can burn in its place. Maybe called andirons. And so dogma, the final M-A is that which is from, and the dog is, that which is from the dog is what is held in its place. When you want to get wise, you might have to look back into the dogma, how you were raised. And wisdom comes from not being afraid to host a thought of your morals and dogma, the way you were raised. That which is from the dog, which is held, the fire that is held in between its borders. It's like wheel chalks. Dog that wheel down over there. It means to put some chalks in there to keep it in its place. Dogma, to keep it in its place. So right now the alphabet community is being used. These are a bunch of letters that we can all deal with, but they're trying to add letters to you. They know that you are a small group and they could use you by bringing you all together to give you more power. And so now you're blinded as to the new letters they're trying to add on there. They're trying to add new letters to it to dim the lights on pedophilia. They're trying to give it a more attractive name, as in minor attractiveness or something, and so watch out what letters you accept into your community, because it's going to bring you all down. And everybody hating on all the colors, I promise you, God made them that way. You cannot beat fag out of them. When you're younger, you're stuck in your dogma, but as you get older, your mind opens up. And it comes from a product of environment, and that's why it's going to happen mostly with politicians' kids. Stress on the environment is what causes this. Overpopulation, everybody turns gay. It's instilled by God. God created this. God as in our environment. So how I found this, I was looking in the Hebrew, and you can see this word for the dogma, is would it do at unpicked. Would it do at unpicked is totally, selected. It's the dogs. Dogs are holding, would it do at unpicked. The part that's being selected and dog together. Which keep Maya the first. And this for killing is what got me, is might fiddling. And to vow, to V-O-W, to vow the denial, not Daniel, denial. To vow denial. And this is where your word Hebrew comes from, H-B-R-U. And his companions, which brew, W-H, which brew they. His companions were which brewing the denial. And to kill them is to let fiddle. To let fiddle. And fiddle is a word for picking the strings. It don't matter if you're picking a violin or a guitar or a harp or a lute, but it's to fiddle, to let pick the strings. And so doesn't mean to kill them, but yeah, let them die, let them play the lute. The haggle is the actual word angels come from. You see in the Greek, angels just spelt with 2 G's, and they give the first one an N because it actually means to haggle, and haggle means a group of harpists, and harpists mean angels, the dead, and that's where that comes from, to let fiddle, to let them play the fiddle, let them die. And so in the Greek, and the decree went forth, what to dogma, what to your beliefs, what to your opinion exalt. What to the opinion exalt, that was the problem they were having. These guys are exalting their opinion. Ahoy, to call attention to. And these aren't wise men. This is so foe is an enemy, and foe is plural enemies. So your enemies a pickin' non to. So your enemies a pickin', as a fiddling, here it's a pickin', a picketing, and non to, without the ability. A picketing non to. To these it has on, not and they sought, but to these, vav, connected, not and, but not necessarily, and can be and, but it's to. To these it has on denial. What to us? W-T-O-U-S. What to us? Fellows. Philos. This is what they say is love in Greek. What to love us, the fellows, his friends. What philos, what love us. Ought to, what they ought to do. Annihilating, to do away with. But annihilating is also annealing. Annealing, and it means to harden by fire. And you see that in the next chapter in 3, when they put the 3 in the fire, and 4 showed. When Nebuchadnezzar looked in, there was 4 there. It's to anneal, to harden by fire. And so this is a clipping from the Septuagint, and you can see where the decree comes from here. When you read this backwards, it's from God's opinion, and that's the decree from God. Oh, God, that's what God thinks, This is just an opinion, the dogma. In other way, it's from God. And so you only see that in the Septuagint with all the markings. It's telling you to read this in the other direction now. Key is the Vav, W, and the mark tells you to read this backwards, so it's W-H, which, and then T, T-A, T-H-S, which this it to, W-H-T-H-S-I-T-A, which this it to, from God, the dogma, from God, the dogma, the opinion. So God's opinion is decree, that's law. And so it was written law first here in the Septuagint. It was changed later for all the freaks in the church and the government. Which it is to from God, the dogma tiseth, it is it. And so I was just wanting to touch on this to remind me to go back and read more into this. I was wanting to clear out some tabs I got open so I can get more space for my movies. But I want to touch this word, the Babylon. It comes up 2 different ways here. What it actually means is enable. B is in, able, on, as. the enablers. I didn't make you drink the whiskey, I just brewed it up, enable. That's why Cain killed Abel. He killed the ability. Enable on as. Enable on yas, on you, Y-A-S, enable on yas. The ones that give you the ability, the enablers. And this is where your word villain come from. Ba, in, and the B is a V also. In a V-U-L-O-N, in a villain. In a villain as. The ones that enabled you. The villains. You can't see the word Babylon here. You just have a BBL or a VVL. The Checkum evil, I-V-V-L. The day in veil, in skin. But I hope somebody reminds me to come back and look at this later. There's a bunch of good stuff in it here. This word that starts line 35 here, Daniel 2. It comes up often. It comes up different ways. At first it just reads bait, and the diamond has you move the I over, B-A-Y-D-I-N, Baden. But it starts here at Daniel 2:14, and it has a different mark, and it's used all throughout Daniel 2 here in this fashion and other fashions. But you'll always see a mark having to do with the D in it, having to read it over. It reads different ways. But what this word means is bada bing, bada bing, bada bang, bada bing. Bada bing is a word, is an English word that means ba, in, da, through, B-N-I. B-N-I is bing. That's what they say it means to sons all through the Hebrew. And I tell you, it means in a mark of time, in, be, in, and the cycle, I work, in the cycle work. In its mark of time, bing. In its cycle, make 2 rings of the clock, bing, bing, on the hour. And so, bada bing, man, bada bing, used to emphasize that something will happen effortlessly and predictable in its set time. They don't know where it comes from, probably imitating the sound of a drum roll, popularized by the U.S. television series The Sopranos. No, it comes straight out the Hebrew Bible, and it means bada bing, as just as I had planned it. And you see it, bada, in, through, the bing, in that mark of time, binged in, B-I-N, B-N-I is bing, and then D, binged in, and bingdom, and bada bingdom, right just as it was supposed to be. And then this one reads backwards, D-U-F, duffed, screwed up, duffed, a miss shot. And you see it up here as the dream was revealed, bada binged, just as it was supposed to, bada binged in, bada bingdom. This final N reads as an M, bada bingdom. It did not all, D-N, and then move the A over, A-Y, N-A-Y, to nay. It did nay all, did no to all, did know all. And so it's even talking about here in the Bible, that it's not a choice. Dogma is a choice. That's what you choose to believe from the dogs that dogged you in, your thoughts. And that's a choice. And you see here, right here, where this cuts off in the Septuagint, and it keeps on going here in this line 28. This is where your word opinion come from. In opinion. In E-N-U-P-N-I-O-N. In opinion. And so the meaning of this word has been changed too. And not a dream. But I found this old original copy of Gulliver's Travels, a 1726 copy. And so it's all about women in astrology too. Laputa, the Putang, Ballin Barbie, B-A-L-N-I is Ing, Balling Barbie, and Lug and Naga, and Glub, Dub, a Drib. These are all inventions. The only one that's not is Japan here. And this used to be mandatory reading back in the day, and it's to let everybody know where the word gullible comes from. And at the time that this was written, pinioned had a different meaning. Pinion, they pinioned us with strong ropes. Pinion is something that you're tied into, but it's your choice. You see here up at the top in the first line, it's in opinion is called a dream. In opinion, what you think about it. And just opposite in the Hebrew, the word is helmet, H-L-M-U-T, the helmet, in your closed up mind. It's just your opinion. In opinion, to exist, E-X-E-S-T-H, to exist. To ma, that which is from the wind, what of. And so this spirit usually means, a fart. It's just your opinion. To that which is from what of that which is from the wind. And of up nose is not sleeping. Up nose is snobbish. What of. And the up nose what of. Into the snobs. And this isn't went, but this is the give to. It's a G-E, and then the N-E turns into a B or a V in the give to. And then to vassal they, to in upon ya. A vassal is a subject. Vassal, the king issues you a piece of property to take care of, and you are a vassal. And so when it's you king, sue vassal, it actually means this your vassalage, sub, under. To in upon you, what of, to health on, H-L-T-H-O-N, to the health on to. And is it has on, in no peon. In no peon. Hey, I'm no peon. And so, a peon is always behind you. The peon, let's say behind or stands with you. And this is in no peon. I'm not behind you, I'm in front. The peon is downwind, getting peed on behind you. You're always walking upwind. And in no peon is the one in front. To a vassal whose, E-O-S, whose. And to a vassal means, to be controlled. To vassal, to be controlled by the king. And we see this, they give it dreamed again, but it's in upon ya. In upon ya, stain. A stain is a sin. To exist. To the wind from, move, to know not. Not to know, but to naya, to not know. To in opinion. You can see it here in 227 beginning. It's a pecker it had on. A pecker it had on. And so, he brought his new wife to meet Dad, and Daddy says, but it had a pecker. It had a pecker on it. And you don't see it here where this reads straight through, but in the Septuagint with the markings, this tells you to read from the other end, P-E-P. And this tells you to grab the next set of letters up to the mark. So this is the P-P. The P-P. And then to the other end, in attach, A-O-T-A-C-H. In attaches the sexidon. And a P-P attaches the sexidon. You see in line 2, Vav, W, and then backwards. When it's at the PP taxin, the PP taxin, they're taxing all the sons of vessel whose. And this word, opinion, in opinion, it reads both ways here, and so it has more meaning, and it's knowing, N-O-I-N, the knowing, the pun, in opinion. There's a pun in the word opinion, and knowing the pun in it, is into pin, P-N-I. That's your Hebrew word for place, ping. ping, they always say in the face of, into pin on. The knowing the pun into pin on, your opinion was pinned on you by what you learned. And here at 7, this first line reads backwards, knows it her, and then the K-E turns into a L, or lip, LP. Her lip a pecker it has on. And so this word coitus, it comes from an old Indian word for the effeminate role in same-sex relation. The one that's being penetrated. Coity, to defecate, to poop, to muddy, get mud on, covering mud. And this all make better sense if you read about oral sex in Wikipedia and what penetration used to actually mean, and their taboos and what they thought about different sexual acts. And so right now, the pedophiles are putting all this together to try to create their own strength, to associate themselves with all these other groups. And they started by putting these other groups all together and strengthening them. And then they're trying to slip in the back door with their pedophilia, minor attraction, trying to slip a couple more letters in there. And so the way to defeat that is, we got to realize that our dogma is our choice. And their sexual preference, they were born with that. I promise you can't beat it out of them. And so what we do is, if we select some of these letters and bring them into our side, that's going to weaken the other letters that we don't want. In order to defeat the pedophilia, you're going to have to take in these other letters that you're afraid of because of your dogma, because of your upbringing. And everybody who says your preacher says that's wrong, you got to know that your preacher don't have a clue. I haven't seen one yet that can read this, and best chances are that he was having strange feelings and thought maybe if he went to the monastery that he could cover them up. But you could get a better reading on this if you break this all down, just 2-letter symbols. It, where, have, cut, to write, to cut in the love, when, is. It's where have cut in the love, when is. And cut in, that's the word for in he writ, or usually it's written with the finger of God. In cut of is with the finger of God, is writ with the finger of God. It where have cut in, it where have written the love when is, A-E-E-S is. And then knowing how to read this after reading the rest of it, I know that you read that S right back, the C. The scene of love taken the root. The scene of love taking the root. It means he's traveling and he take in the root, on your travels. The scene, S-E-A-N, the S-C-E-N-E, the scene. The scene of love taking the root. And so that's what this book's about. They say this is a law, the Torah, the Torah, in cut in love to nay, my love. The law in cut in love to nay, the chore, to nature. And that was the God of this Bible. So I'll get into more of that in the next short flick. And it's going to blow your mind when you see what this written with the finger of God means.
Don't forget. I won't forget.
Alright, I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.